The Ridley Report.
I felt that there was some defamatory comments, specifically libelous comments, in these threads, and I had requested that the moderator remove the defamatory comments. Since I've made those requests, certain segments of those threads have been removed. The ones specifically that were described by law, could be described and could be proven by law to be defamation against either my personal character or the character of my company.
Do you, would you have been willing to use government, excuse me, would you have been willing to use government against liberty activists in order to bring these threads down?
My personal belief is that disputes should be able to be settled between reasonable individuals. I don't really like having lawyers involved as a mediator or a moderator in the process. I like to go direct to the source and be able to resolve any disputes. Unfortunately, with these internet forums, it can be very difficult to do that. So, you know, in order to put a little teeth into the argument, I think it was important to remind people that there
are consequences to their behavior.
Yeah, there are consequences.
You know, you just can't go around. Come on, it's fundamental libertarian philosophy. Your freedom ends at the tip of my nose. You can't go around slandering and libeling people because you hurt their reputation. Those hurts can have monetary consequences. If he had had any accounts canceled as a result of this, then there would have been certainly an actionable a cause of action. You know, people have to think about what they say. You know, it's fun. We all get together at PorcFest, and maybe you know, they had a little to drink, and you know, the lips just got moving and couldn't get stopped. People, this is not going to be the first. This may be the first time. I don't think it is, but it's certainly not going to be the last time that this happens. This is going to happen again, and we need to come up with some sort of a unwritten rule or some, you know, cultural method of dealing with this on a fair basis that's fair to all concerned. A lot of what happened is that Chris stepped into an alternative world, and I'm glad to see this. The freedom movement has grown and matured so much that we now have an alternate set.
It's a second society.
It's a second society.
Yeah, we have a second society. Yeah.
And we have alternate mores. We have customs. We have traditions already. Traditions. Can you imagine? Traditions. And this is wonderful. But, you know, someone just walking into the middle of this can get stumbled. I mean, one of the rules that we have is you don't ask people where they live. And Chris did that. I just, at a gathering I had on 4th of July, I asked someone that. You know, what was I thinking? You know, it's just not something that you do in our alternative society. But it's so customary in the what do we call it? The slave society, just to ask that as a way of making conversation. So, you know, these are hard habits to break, and there are other rules, there are other unwritten rules that we have, and you know, they're unwritten, and the only way you find out what they are is to hang around long enough to stumble into a few of these landmines. I certainly have. I stumble into the. Here's an example. Nobody wants to call September 11th 911 anymore, because they feel that that's the semantics that the state has applied to that event, because they want to associate it with some big emergency like a 911 emergency call. And all of us who are who realize that, you know, it was a fraud are going to call it September 11th. Well, that, you know, I still stumble into that little landmine from time to time, and I get corrected on it all the time. There are all these rules.
Well, all kinds of us are breaking all of these rules on a regular basis still, because they're really not set in stone in any sort of way.
And they're pretty picayune.
Yeah.
And there's and Boston Tea Party was talking about this at his speech at the Liberty Forum in January, and he said that us libertarians have to stop squabbling amongst ourselves about this and that little philosophy differences, and just get down and work with each other. We're all in this together. And we need to stick together.
Well, ultimately, the government is in the same boat as us.
Yeah.
Stop and think about it. But, is there anything else that either of you would like to add that I haven't asked either of you yet?
No, I can't think of anything.
I think it's important that those who would like to perceive and define the threats posed to the liberty movement, that every one of you go out and buy the book, The Art of War by Lao Tzu, because this is classic military strategy. You got to realize that your enemy, who the true enemy is, will always try and divert your attention away from the enemy. Insofar as the enemy is perceived to be a person or a group of people that is outside of the liberty movement that tries to infiltrate the liberty movement, I believe that that's diversion. I believe that anyone who comes to believe that the true enemy lies outside is deluding themselves. Ultimately, the true enemy of freedom, the true enemy of liberty, lies inside each and every one of us. And if we are to conquer that enemy, we have to stop focusing our attention away from the true threat. And we have to work on ourselves. We have to work on our fear. We have to work on overcoming that fear. We also have to work on our sense of love and how better to live in a state of love and to be fearless and to proceed towards liberty. You're not going to do that by fighting against some specter that comes and goes, a person who might be a Fed or a government infiltration of the movement. You can't fight that, nor will that solve the problems that we're facing here. Ultimately, the way that we grow, the way that we succeed in liberating humankind is by liberating ourselves, each and every one of us taking responsibility for the liberation of ourselves inside our own hearts, inside our own minds, inside our own souls. Let's conquer our fear, and let's learn to love and to live in that state of love.
There's one more thing I'd like to leave you with before we finish up. There, in that thread, the Witch Hunt of Christopher thread, there were 3 links to 3 YouTubes. The thread may be gone, or that link may be gone, but we're going to put those links in the video description of this file. It's a Twilight Zone episode entitled something on Maple Street. And anyway, it's a great episode. Watch that episode. You'll see what we're up against. It's classic. It's not it's not specific to the freedom movement. It's specific to the human race. And the other thing is, I'd like to leave people with a reading recommendation. It's a book called How the World Really Works. It's written by Alan B. Jones, not Alex, Alan Jones, and it's a compilation of 30,000 pages of research into 300 large print pages. And if you ever need to catch up on what everybody's talking about, like the Fed or the government's involvement in the drug trade, read this book, because it's a review of 12 other books some of which you may have read, and some of which you just have put off because they're too big. Well, here you are. Get the whole thing in 300 pages, and I still have a few of these copies left.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate both of you speaking to me and your openness and your open-heartedness.
Thank you.
I'll see you both out there.
Do you have a message for the Ron Paul movement? Do you have a product for the New Hampshire Liberty community? Then stop keeping it a secret. Head, on over to
RidleyReport.com. Email Ridley
and purchase an ad. There is no humiliation nor privation Ridley will not endure to ensure your message gets out.
RidleyReport.com